right, a bit of a different intro today on the Crowcast preview for round 9. With me tonight on the cast is Phoenix and Mr. Mystery Guest, and I'm your host Scorpus, in case you had forgotten. How are you guys doing tonight?
Who was that rock god on the intro? Bloody hell.
Oh yeah, hectic stuff. Really good. All right, let's get in straight to the team selections. I'm going to start with the Gold Coast changes, just so we can get those out of the way as quickly as possible, because they've made 6 changes. Coming out, Tom Nichols, Adam Sard, Touk Miller, Gary Ablett, Keegan Brooksby and Aaron Hall. Some huge changes out for them this week. Coming in, Michael Rischitelli, Luke Russell, Peter Wright, Ryan Davis, Daniel Curry and Seb Tape. So they've made some pretty significant changes there. And for Adelaide, now if you haven't heard the news already, we have dropped Brad Crouch. We have omitted Matt Crouch, or he's sore or something, some excuse related to that. Jared Lyons is coming back in, don't mind that. But the big change, the one that I'll be tearing shreds into in just a second, Nathan Van Berlo, he is in the team. Now, what the actual fuck are the selectors thinking? I mean, seriously, Nathan Van Berlo is cooked, and he should never be part of our AFL team if we are serious about winning a premiership. He is not going to add anything to our team on Saturday afternoon, and I just cannot fathom this change in any way. The emergencies are guys like Dean Gore and Harry Wigg. Those are the people that we should be playing in this team instead of Nathan Van Berlo. It is just unbelievable. On the other hand, and this is also terrible, we've dropped Brad Crouch. Now, I'll be the first to admit Brad Crouch's form over the past couple of weeks hasn't been fantastic, but he has only played a small handful of games over the past 2 years thanks to his injuries, and we've gone and dropped him rather than backing him in. It's an absolute disgrace that we have brought in Nathan Van Berlo and dropped Brad Crouch when Brad Crouch is the clear future of our AFL team, and Nathan Van Berlo is going to be, I don't know what he'll be doing next year because I just can't see him on the list. Phoenix, what do you think? Because I am furious at these changes.
And roll outro music, because that sums it up, mate. I'm absolutely gobsmacked. I agree with everything that you said. They brought in Brad underdone. You thought that it was looking at the bigger picture. You thought that they'd give him a run. There was a mountain of options they could have made to ease him back into the team, but no, they shove him straight back into the midfield. And now, after a couple of predictably poor games where he's still off the pace, they drop him for one, which is the first crime in my view. I advocated for the last week that he had a role rotating with Charlie Cameron through the midfield. But then to bring in Van Berlo, like as you say, there's Harry Wiggs on the emergency list. Dean Gore, surprisingly, on the emergency list. He hasn't done that much. Cameron Ellis-Yeoman, what the hell are we doing with this kid? I mean, who did he actually stab in the back at the club? Because, quite frankly, the thing that bugs me, and this is my turn to have a rant, the thing that bugs me is we ditch a perfectly good midfielder in Kerridge for a speculative forward in a team that is blessed with forward line options at the moment. So we're already down one midfield. And then we don't actually bring on our next generation of midfielders. Cameron Ellis-Yeoman, he'll be seeking a trade next year, and it's going to come up to bite us in the arse. I can't believe it. I just can't believe it.
It's honestly the worst changes I've seen us make since the Sanderson era. It's almost unforgivable, these changes. They're just, I mean, let's go back to last week's match, and we'll look at some of the guys that performed poorly. Douglas, he had, 8 or 9 touches. Smith, 6 touches. Seedsman, he was shocking. Tomo, he looked slow and off the pace. And what have they gone and done? They've gone and dropped Brad Crouch, and they've brought in Nathan Van Berlo. It's just unbelievable. What do you think, Mr. Mystery Guest?
You've pretty much said it already, mate. But for me, the Matt Crouch one doesn't look that bad. If you just say he saw, Lions looks like the obvious replacement. All good there. As Phoenix said, first mistake is dropping Brad in the first place. And then instead of bringing in Gore, Ellis-Yeoman, we bring in possibly who I would put last in the queue for who we want to bring in. It doesn't make any sense. I think this is worse than any changes that I can remember, even from the Sanderson era. It's the worst change I can even think of that I've ever seen the club make.
Oh, I completely agree.
It just boggles my mind.
It doesn't make a single shred of sense after... I mean, we saw in the first round that Don Pike had put Nathan Van Berlo in the team at the expense of Kyle Hartigan. And at the time, we were all thinking, he probably deserves another shot under a new coach. And then this failed against North Melbourne. He was immediately dropped. And we were all thinking at the time, Don Pike, he's realised that, Nathan Van Berlo, he's not really the future of the club. We need Kyle Hartigan back in our defence. And it looked like we'd have finally a coach that was making the right calls. And then something has happened in the last couple of rounds. It's probably got to do with our losses against some good teams. And suddenly we've reverted back to shocking selections. And I'm not going to harp on too much more about it because we have got an entire game to preview. But I completely agree with you, Phoenix, and Mr. Mystery Guest. It's unbelievable. I'm almost speechless at this point about how ridiculous it is. Anyway... we'll move on because there's a lot more to discuss. If there's any match that we're bringing Nathan Van Berlo in for, it's probably good that it's this one because Gold Coast are missing pretty much half of their team. Gary Ablett, May, McKenzie, O'Meara, Rosa, Sard, Sexton, Swallow, Thompson, Hall, Miller. These are all players who won't be playing on the weekend. Now that is almost an entire AFL side that won't be playing. So we're looking at a NEFL side this week, and it'll be pretty interesting to see how we go up at Metricon Stadium on Saturday afternoon. The last match that we played was round 17, 2015. This was, I think it was at Adelaide Oval. I didn't write it down. But we won by 45 points in the last quarter blowout. Cameron had 4 goals, Jenkins 3 goals, 4, Laird 32 touches, Lever 24 and 7 rebounds, one of the best games I think he's played for us. And Lynch and Dixon 4 and 3 goals respectively for the Gold Coast. So, Phoenix, who do you think will be a key matchup for us this week? Who do we need to stop on the Gold Coast team if there's actually anyone in their team that we need to stop?
No, there's no one we need to stop. This is a very sad state of affairs for Gold Coast. I mean, I believe they actually played 2 players short in the NEFL last week.
Yeah, I heard that.
Because of their injury list. And you couldn't see them actually fielding a team in the NEFL this week. It's a shocking run, and it's very unfortunate for Rocket, who I thought was just starting to imprint his style onto that team and just toughening them up a fraction. What I think we'll see is the usual flat track bullies pump up their numbers this week. I think we'll see Josh Jenkins kick a bag. I think we'll see Scotty Thompson rack up 40 posies. And what I expect to see following that in the press is, everything's all right with the world. But I can't be arsed with this match. It's a complete mismatch, and it's a real shame for Gold Coast.
Yeah, mate, you definitely sound flat in your speaking this week, and I think it's definitely the case when it comes to this match. Just after the changes and just seeing, that we're playing probably the worst team in the AFL at the moment, considering their outs. I mean, their midfield at the moment, I've written it down, and when I was doing it, it's just unbelievable who they're actually going to be playing. Dion Prestia and Michael Riscatelli, they're probably their 2 main midfielders. They're pretty decent. Then they've got Lonergan, Shaw, Grant, McPherson, and Harbrow rolling through there. And, I mean, when you just look at those guys, I mean, you really feel for their team, like you said, that it's just... They're not going to really be able to put up a fight, even though it's at Metricon Stadium. And, yeah, I mean, it's just going to be a real sad state of affairs for them. Last week, they were obliterated by GWS by 91 points. Jeremy Cameron kicked 7 goals. Gold Coast had just 4 goal scorers that match: Matera, Grant, Lynch, and Ablett. And Ablett's not playing this week, so I mean, it's really sad for them. They've been crushed.
What's going to be interesting, actually, is to see how our 2 key posts in defence handle Tommy Lynch, who is probably the most promising forward form-wise at the moment in the competition. And is it Peter Wright? Paul Wright? Yep. Peter Wright, I think it is.
2 metre Peter.
Who gave us some difficulties the last time I saw him. I think, did we play them in the NAB Cup or something? I don't know.
We did, NAB 3.
Yeah. And I think he gave us a little bit of problems. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see how those two players go with, assuming the ball actually gets inside their 50 metres. But given that they've got Riscatelli and Pressia, who towed up Scotty Thompson last time we played them for points, if I remember rightly, they may actually... Wouldn't it be funny if they ended up winning the clearances or something? Because I wouldn't put it past them with our bloody midfield.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if they won the clearances after the way that our midfield is going. I've just actually got up the stats quickly from that NAB Challenge match. It was actually only Tom Lynch kicked 1 goal and Peter Wright had no goals. So, yeah, kind of interesting.
How many marks did he take?
Ooh, interesting. Peter Wright had 3 marks and we had Tom Lynch with 5. So, yeah, we managed to win that game. I wouldn't say by a huge amount. It's probably like 20 points or something, but interesting. I think we rested Carl Hardigan for probably 3/4 of that match too. So, of course, he'll be playing this week and will probably be up against 2 metre Peter. So, yeah, it'll be interesting how he goes because he's been in pretty good form. But back to the midfield. We lost the midfield battle last week pretty comprehensively, I think. I don't think a single player in our midfield, with the exception of Rory Sloane, really stood up on that night. Matt Crouch is probably the second best, but he was obviously not playing this week. Mr. Mystery Guest, can our midfield turn around against the weakest opposition that will play probably this season?
Do they even have to? I think
it'll... right.
Yeah. Well, if they can't, then in big trouble. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I don't know. They really should. I mean, obviously they've given Douglas a chance to get some form back.
He has been really poor over the past couple of weeks.
If he just absolutely has to go. If he performs poorly again, then there's just really no reason to keep him in the side.
Yeah,
you'd think. I'm a little bit interested to where we actually play Van Berlo. If maybe Smith moves up the ground or something. If we're playing Van Berlo through the middle, then he might even get his numbers up and look decent, which means I really, really hope we don't keep him in and take him into the GWS game next week. Because
don't even suggest.
It'll be funny if we do.
That's the game.
Oh my god, I can't even imagine how fucking terrible it would be if Van Berlo was still in the team after. Oh my god. All right. I agree. I think Douglas really needs to turn his form around. He's been pretty poor in the last couple of weeks. The issue that I see is that no matter what we do in the midfield, we'll probably look good on the weekend. And I think that will just be papering over some of the cracks that have emerged over the past, week or 2 weeks. We've really been sucked into the contest in the midfield. At stoppages, we'll have 3 or 4 guys going for the ball. It's just not working. We're not getting to the ball to our outside players. They're not positioned correctly. And a strong team like Geelong, they were able to just slice us up. The problem is we'll probably still do that, but the Gold Coast just simply doesn't have the personnel to harm us like Geelong is able to. And when the ball gets inside 50, and we'll probably have another, issues again with third man ups, our defenders not staying down when they should, again getting sucked into the contest. But again, Gold Coast, they really just don't have the forward power at the moment to really trouble us with over-the-back goals. So either way, I think we'll be coming out with a pretty significant win, and it won't really give us a really good idea of where we're at the moment and whether we've actually been able to fix some of those problems. Phoenix, the rebounding game has been an issue. What do we need to do to address it?
Well, just touching on what you just said then, I think last week showed us where we were at, and it's disappointing as a consequence. We've seen these selection changes. In terms of our rebounding game, the biggest noticeable difference in the last couple of weeks is that we've gone into our shells and stop running.
Hugely.
So we're no longer using that aggressive handball, through defensive 50 and bombing out of defence to a contest on the wing is just setting ourselves up for turnover. So what I'd really want to see coming out of defence this week is a return to that aggressive handball style, to create some overlap and to run through whatever zone Gold Coast can muster. And I suppose from that point of view, having some witches' hats to train against won't be a bad thing. But whether the problem is that our defensive rebound has fallen down under really good pressure and really good defensive structure from the opposition. So we might look like millionaires again this week, but it really won't mean anything unless we come up against some tough opposition.
Yeah, and tough opposition is not something that we'll be facing this week, I don't think. Mr. Mystery Guest, when it comes to our forward line, we had, I wouldn't say the best couple of weeks for the forwards down there. Walker he had another almost game. I think he looked good in the first quarter, but he dropped away big time against Geelong. Jenkins, he couldn't kick another 8 goals. Betts, he's been serviceable, but he hasn't been kicking a bag. Mr. Mystery Guest, is this the week for the forwards? Can someone come out and kick a huge bag?
I think they might. They might all kick a big bag this week.
Who do you nominate to kick a bag?
Betts. I noticed that we saw Sard really trouble Betts in the NAB Cup game, and he's another out. I can see us just with their midfield woes, we'll just keep pumping it in there, and he'll get lots of opportunities. And he'll probably kick 5 or 6 goals.
Yeah, it's really hard to understate how important Adam Sard is for their team. In the NAB Cup match, kept Eddie Betts to just 1 behind, but the fact that he's injured is a huge loss for them. I mean, their entire defence at the moment, they've got probably their 3 or 4 first choice defenders out in May, Thompson, McKenzie, and Sard. So, I mean, it's just hard not to see our forward line getting on top and kicking a significant score. There's really not that much else to say about this game. I mean, it's going to be pretty straightforward. If we can't really get on top of Gold Coast and pile on, in excess of 10 goals, I think we'll be in real strife considering the outs that Gold Coast has. How do you
Sam Day on Jenkins is going to be interesting because you got 2 real softcocks of the competition there. You can see them at some stage. The ball's going to come in high, and they're both going to run away from it and wait for the crumb out the back.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting that they have to play Sam Day in the back lines at the moment. I think he's better suited as a third tall forward, but I mean, they've got no one else. It's like us playing Jenkins in the defence. I mean, Phoenix, how would you like to see Jenkins go as a defender? I mean, it's just like it's not going to be good.
Well, marginally better than Henderson, but pretty line ball, I reckon.
Henderson. He's probably the last player that we'll touch on today. I wasn't actually going to bring him up, but some of his defensive efforts last week were shocking. He's not a defender. He is not a defender, and he was responsible for probably... In fact, I think I went through and did the analysis. It was something like 9 of 13 goals that we conceded. Was it 13 goals? Yeah, I think 9 of the 13, he was responsible for making some sort of error in, whether that was, kicking to some contest or fluffing a hand pass or stuffing up a mark or something.
But he got 20 kicks, though, so that's why he's in. Well, I mean, 20 of the worst kicks you'd ever seen in your life.
He had a lot of metres gained, and I think that was his strength on the night, was his ability to pump it long. I'm not sure whether the long pumps were effective because, we were tailed up in the midfields, but Henderson, it's wing or bust for Henderson. We have strong wing players already in Smith and Seedsman. I think he's probably third in line there. I can't really see him remaining in the team when Laird gets back, but Henderson he's not a defender and he can't play down there. It's just lucky that we're playing a team that doesn't have the forward line to really trouble Hendo, but yeah, he was shocking last week. Mr. Mystery Guest, what is your tip for this week and how much is Adelaide going to win by?
I would say 100 points.
Only 100? Okay, that's pretty light on there.
Last time I thought we were going to smash a team, we only won by 5 goals, so...
Okay. And best on ground?
Eddie Betts.
All right, nice call. Phoenix, what do you reckon?
15 goals for mine. Anything less is not acceptable. We need the percentage. And if ever there was a game set up to get it, this was it. As far as best on, I'm going to go Rory. I don't think that they'll be able to hold him in the midfield, and he might rack up 40 this week.
So that's Rory Sloane, not Atkins, right?
Correct. Although, can I hedge my bets just in case?
Yeah, I think Atkins will have a good week this week. I agree with both of you. We should come out and slaughter this team by, at least 120, 130 points, hopefully. That said, we have had a few issues closing out matches that we've been beating up on the opposition in. I think the Port and Richmond games are two great examples of us coming out to a huge lead and then easing off in the fourth quarter, but I think this will be a pretty comprehensive victory for us. All right, and this brings me to the interlude for this week and a new segment that I like to call Game of Crows.
Da, 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 da.
I've got the music, Phoenix. All right, so this is kind of a competition.
Sorry, mate, I doubted you.
You got to have the music whenever you make a Game of Thrones reference. It's mandatory, mate. So this is a game that I'm introducing for this week and for the rest of the season in the Crowcast preview, just to spice it up a little bit. Basically, the aim of this game is to make a bold claim each week about the match involving the Crows. Something like, Sloane having 40 touches, McGovern kicking 5 goals, something like that. Maybe even Van Berlo having a team-high clanger count, something like that. In the next week's cast, we will reassess these claims and see whether they have turned out to be true. And if they are true, we'll be awarded 1 point each. So, if my prediction of like McGovern kicking 5 turns out to be true, I get myself 1 point. If not, no points. And at the end of the season, just as incentive for you, Phoenix and Mr. Mystery Guest, the winner will get a slab of beer delivered to your door directly by me. So there's a little bit of an incentive here to take out the Game of Crows. But we're not just restricting it to the guys on the cast. We are a live and interactive show, so anyone listening in can also participate. You just have to, if you're listening live, comment in the Spreaker app, make your bold claim. We'll tally it down and give you a point next week if it turns out to be true. If you're listening to the recording, you can also jump in. Just make sure you get in before the start of the game on Saturday. Tweet us at BFCrowcast or even put it in the Spreaker comments for this episode. It will be a little bit of fun to see some of the claims that we come up with. I'm going to go this week with Henderson having conceded at least 5 goals. Phoenix, what do you reckon your bold claim of the week will be?
Luke Brown to kick 2 goals.
Oh, that's pretty bold, mate. You might not get the points this week. Mr. Mystery Guest, how about you?
Charlie Cameron with 20 plus disposals.
Okay. I think how many did he have last week? It would have been
18.
a few. 18, okay. Interesting. So I guess that's probably a step up. We're getting some people to come in the chat already. How many stabs are we allowed, says Vardy Magic? Just 1. So I guess the first one that you send through is the one that we'll go for. But if it's not bold enough, we'll probably convene and decide whether it's a bold enough claim. We've got Paul A coming in with Jenkins to kick 12 and Matthew Wallace with Jenkins to kick 10. Wow, those are very bold claims. We'll see how that goes next week in the Game of Crows. So yeah, interesting little game for us, and hopefully some of our listeners who are listening to the recording will also chime in. We'll have a bit of a nice competition going there.
Get them to chuck it on the preview thread.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We will. Matthew Wallace says it isn't a big prediction for Jenkins to kick 10, and yeah, I kind of agree against the Gold Coast defence. We'll move on though.
Hang on. I want a steward's inquiry on Mr. Mystery Guess's bold claim.
Not bold enough.
It's not bold. No, Cameron's. If you're going to be bold on Cameron, it's got to be at least 30 posies, surely.
30.
Okay,
hold on. I'll change it then to.
Or 25. Would we take
25?
Okay, 25?
I was gonna change players. Tom Lynch 5 goals. Adelaide Tom Lynch 5 goals.
That's not bold.
Not
That's
against
not
Gold Coast bold, mate.
Come on, man.
How often does it happen though?
He's the only one that's kicked 10 recently.
Yeah, one time. One time. And that was when we had no Walker and Jenkins was still really shit. So,
Mate, I've tipped Luke Brown to keep 2 goals, for Christ's sake. He's never kicked 2 goals in his career.
I've got to say, Phoenix, your claim might be too bold to take out the points this week, but Mr. Guest, I'd take 7 goals for Lynch. I think that's probably a bold claim.
I'm just thinking about...
You want to win the slab, don't you?
something.
Let's be honest.
I don't want to go too bold.
Sam Jacobs to win the hit-out count?
Oh, I mean, come on. He's up against Daniel Curry. If he has 50 touches, that's bold.
I don't really... That's not even a bold one, though, to me. I mean, he's actually still getting a fair few hit-outs. They're just really bad. So...
Yep.
Well, actually, I'll say, how many hit-outs to advantage would be bold for Jacobs?
I think he's been averaging about 10, so...
We'll say 20 then. That's pretty bold.
That's bold.
That is very bold.
Gone from one extreme to the other.
I mean, let's have a look at his hit-outs to advantage for this season. He has had 10, 12, 8, 11, 13, 8, and 8. So 20, bold claim, we'll accept it. Maybe next week when we all completely stuff up and get no points, we'll have to, tighten up or loosen up the restrictions on what we claim as bold. But yeah, everyone, get in your claims for this week. We'll see how it goes next week. We'll move on to the SANFL team because we don't have a bye this week, which is a surprise because last week we had a bye, and as it turns out, next week we also have a bye. So yeah, fantastic stuff there, SANFL. But we're playing Central Districts this week. It's on Saturday, the same time as our AFL match at My Money House Oval. So that's an interesting one. Coming into the team, we've got 2 guys returning from injury. Kelly, he was out with a couple of weeks with his broken hand, and Otten, he wasn't actually injured, he was suspended, but he's back. Brad Crouch coming into the team too, as well as Hancock and Sean Makers, who are 2 top-up players. Coming out, Lyons, Van Berlo, of course, AFL duty, and Lindsay, who's been omitted. We had a close victory last time we played in the SANFL, Phoenix. Central Districts, how have they actually been travelling this season?
By car, I think, mate. That's about all the intel I've got on Central District, sorry. Yeah,
so I think with Brad Crouch back, he'll probably be dominating the centre, and without Van Berlo, that's probably, he brings leadership, I guess, but whether his touches have been all that effective, I'm not sure because I don't really get too many SNFL games. What about you, Mr. Guest? You were the expert a couple of weeks back on the SNFL. How's Central travelling?
I have no idea, to be honest.
Oh, wow. Well, we stuffed up this one.
I've only watched a handful of the Crows SNFL games. I've watched 1 or 2 other SNFL games through the season, but not many. I really don't know. Where do they sit on the ladder?
They're 5th on the ladder with 3-3.
Right.
So, yeah. And not a bad percentage, 55%. So they must be going okay.
Yeah. I think we're not on the top of the ladder anymore, are we? But we'll probably have a decent win this week, considering the strength of our SNFL team. And being
might
able
go back on top after this week, though. I think South lost last week.
Yeah, 6-1. I think the interesting ones will be Kelly and Otten. Given our defensive shortcomings at the moment, it would have been actually nice to see Kelly come in over Henderson, or actually my grandmother to come in over Henderson, but I don't think she's in the squad. But we could do with Otten and Henderson, Otten and Kelly and those blokes finding a bit of form. So good to see them back in. Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to give a shout out to Sam Shaw. He's been out for the past month or so with a concussion. Hopefully he's doing all right and we can see him back in the SNFL soon. On to the other matches for the round. We've got a huge match on Friday night, Hawthorn versus Sydney at the MCG. This is going to be an absolute cracker. Hawthorn might be a little bit down because of the unfortunate diagnosis to Jared Ruffhead with his recurrence of cancer. We wish him all the best, and we hope that his team isn't feeling too bad about that, because this will be a really cracking game of football, and they really want to show what Jared Ruffhead means to the team and how important he is. So, Phoenix, this match,
we saw Sydney lose by a kick after the siren last week. It was a thrilling game. Will the luck go for them this week or against them like in the Richmond game?
Look, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because unfortunately, the roughhead situation does hang over the game, and as we saw with the Phil Walsh situation last year, when there's something so close to home to the players, it can have one or two effects. It can either lift them, or it can suck the life out of them. Personally, I think they might be a bit flat this week. I think they'll try, but I think Sydney might just get up.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting one. Mr. Guys, how about you? You see it the same? Do you reckon Hawthorn will be too flat to take out the victory?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Big question on Sydney at the moment about whether they're flat track bullies as well. The same way West Coast are. Although I think they would be pretty disappointed their last couple of minutes against Richmond. So I can see them going in really hard this week.
Sydney got some good ins, McGlynn and Kennedy, as well as Rowan. Kennedy in particular.
Oh, wow, that's good. Yeah, good for them.
Yeah, Hawks have got Cyril back. Good ins for Sydney, I reckon.
Yeah, it's interesting to see also just in the betting odds that Sydney is sitting at $2.40, whereas Hawthorn are $1.60 for that Friday night match. That could present some interesting odds if Hawthorn are as flat as everyone is predicting on that week. The other huge match of the week will be GWS versus the Western Bulldogs Sunday afternoon at Spotless Stadium. We've seen the Western Bulldogs have two of their main players suspended in Redpath and Matthew Boyd. Their backline is looking really weak in terms of their rebound. It's even weaker than it was the past couple of weeks, and GWS have been in absolutely fantastic form. So I think I'll be tipping GWS quite comfortably at home this week. Phoenix, do you reckon Western Bulldogs are in with a shot?
I think Redpath's a really big out for them. He's been doing quite well up forward. And GWS have a couple of good ins so far into the squad. And losing Boyd, the Bullies as well down back. They're just, I can't see them having the manpower to hold a pretty much full strength GWS this week at home.
Yeah, all those first round picks for GWS are really, really coming to light at the moment. I mean, Hopper's debut last week with 32 touches is one of the better games I've seen from a debutant. I mean, he was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Mr. Guest, you're going to be tipping GWS as well?
Yeah, especially at home. It gives them, and with the doggies outs, gives them a massive advantage. The main thing that I would look to take away from it is how the rest of the field matches up, how they match up in the midfield, and see how that goes. Because if it's relatively even, then GWS forward line would just be too strong for them.
Oh, absolutely. They have some absolute guns up there. Now, Mr. Mystery, yes, we didn't go through the tips at the start of this match because I was so angry about the changes, but you had a shocker. You only tipped 4, going by my little stats here. What happened there?
Yeah, I actually completely forgot and tipped no one, so I just got all the away teams.
Oh, well, I mean, I only tipped 5, so maybe actually choosing for once wasn't that much better, but Phoenix, you had a good week. Tip 7. What were the 2 that you missed?
Oh, I can't remember. Sydney was 1, and that's right. And I picked Brisbane at home.
Yeah, same. In hindsight, tipping Brisbane was a real mistake. But I mean, I also tipped guys like Adelaide to win. How that turned out wasn't so good. There's a couple more games this week that I reckon are probably worth covering. Port Adelaide versus West Coast Saturday twilight at Adelaide Oval. I'll be looking at this game just to see purely how many turnovers Jackson Trengove will have. He had a shocker last week in their loss against Carlton. West Coast known for being flat track bullies. We're not quite sure how they travel at the moment. They've been pretty poor, I guess. Port Adelaide look pretty shit. Mr. Mystery Guest, Port Adelaide, can they win, or will the class of West Coast just be too much?
No, I don't think so. Nat Nui to be best on ground, I reckon.
Yeah. Up against their 0 ruckman that they're playing. Yeah, I can see Nat Nui.
Only once.
Yeah, he could be an okay ruckman. Probably better than Jackson Trengo. He was absolutely terrible.
I think Wines actually contested a couple of centre bounces last week.
Oh, wow. But that's surprising considering they have Westhoff, Dixon and Trengove there, that they'd put Ollie Wines in the centre. He'd be the fourth string ruckman. But I guess, considering what we've seen from them this year, it's not a huge surprise.
If you're going to lose the ruck anyway, you might as well have an extra midfielder around the ball.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Gray in for Port this week, and the whisper is that Josh Kennedy's out as he awaits the birth of his first child. So that might balance the scales a little bit. I don't know by how much so.
Yeah, it'll certainly be one to tune into, I reckon, on the weekend and just see Port Adelaide stuff up another match. Probably the final match that we want to look at, Fremantle versus Richmond, Saturday night at Domain Stadium. Not the best two teams, but Richmond did have a win last week. Fremantle's on their home deck and they haven't won a single game this year. Looks like Ross Lyon has gone into tanking mode, but the odds suggest that it's only slightly in Richmond's favour at $1.75 to $2.12 for Freo. Phoenix, can Freo win the first game of the season this week finally?
Look, I think they can actually. Pav and Dawson come in, not that they're magnificent players, and Sheridan. Richmond have got Cochin in and Kane Lambert, but lose Ellis, who is a bit of an accumulator for them. I think Freo might open their account this week in a tight one.
Yeah, it could be an interesting one to watch on Friday night up against the other match, which is North Melbourne versus Carlton at Etihad. That one's probably not going to be as exciting, but Mr. Mistrigas, who are you tipping in the Freo-Richmond game?
I think it might depend on if Richmond get over their premiership hangover from last week. So if they use that as momentum, or if it was seen as a huge thing, so they actually use it to turn their season around rather than just getting too excited over one win would be the difference. So, but I reckon it would. Sorry. So, I reckon Richmond will get the win.
Interestingly, neither team has beaten each other at home since 2013. Each of their wins against the opposition, Freo won in 2014 at the G, Richmond won later that season, 2015 at Domain, and then Freo beat Richmond last year at the G. So interesting.
Yeah, it is an interesting stat, but it's a really tough one to tip, and I'd probably be swinging just slightly towards Fremantle this week. I think, just to close out the cast, another new section, rapid fire questions. We'll go through these really quickly, see what sort of things we say. Phoenix, will we see another floggish goal celebration from Charlie Dixon?
Most definitely.
Yeah, he God, that was embarrassing for him last week. Mr. Mystery Guest, who will score more goals in this week's reserves, Johnny Butcher or Travis Cloak?
Butcher.
Yep, I can see that one. Of course, Travis Cloak missed a goal from the goal square.
I saw that.
Unbelievable.
That was amazing.
Oh, sorry, I think it hit the mic there, but just in my unbelievable how he could possibly miss that one. Phoenix, who will win a final first, Fremantle or Richmond?
Fremantle.
So you reckon they'll get through the rebound before Richmond ends up winning a final?
Well, Richmond are yet to go through their rebound, and they're going to have to do it this next season, so they're stuffed.
And Mr. Mystery Guest, final question. Will you be going to see the Angry Birds movie when it comes out?
I doubt it.
Did you even know it was a thing? Like Angry Birds, it's apparently still a thing.
I've seen some of the ads for the movie.
Oh, it looks shocking, mate.
I think it's the last cash in. They've been around too long now. It's time to move on.
I think they're making a Tetris movie too now. So.
Oh yeah, I saw that. Have they run out of ideas? Honestly, because Angry Birds was relevant like 4 years ago, and Tetris. Is that even a movie
it's a
idea
classic,
there? It's a classic, but how do you make a movie out of fucking Tetris? Like, what's going on there?
Hang on, here's the punchline. It's a blockbuster.
Oh my god. Oh, Phoenix, mate. We have to end the cast
Roll
there.
credits.
So I think that pretty good cast this week. We've gone 40 minutes. Hopefully everyone's enjoyed it. Don't forget to get in your bold claims for Game of Crows for those who are listening to the cast in a recording. You can find us on Twitter at BF Crowcast, Facebook BF Crowcast. Don't forget to follow us on iTunes and give us a review. In fact, I think someone did give us a review last week, but hasn't come up quite yet on iTunes. Big shout out to the Crowbar. I was listening to a couple of their podcasts last night. They do a fantastic job. Definitely worth listening to now that they're part of the Crowcast family. You'll find them on Spreaker and on their usual places. Phoenix, you'll be back on Sunday for the review game. Hopefully there's a fair bit to talk about when we do a big win this week. And of course, we'll be back on Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Adelaide time, with all the stuff. So, yeah, fingers crossed we get in a win, and we'll catch you guys next week. See you later.
See you guys. See you Sunday.